Margaret, a 6-year-old girl, lived with her mother, Linda, and her silent deaf brother, Robert. The house they occupied was an old, crumbling Victorian structure on the hillside of Philadelphia, its paint peeling like dead skin, its windows dark and uninviting. Neighbors often noticed Robert standing motionless at the window on the first floor, his hollow eyes watching the streets of Philadelphia like a silent sentinel. His presence was unnerving, his stillness unnatural, as if he were a statue rather than a living being. Margaret was never allowed to play with the neighborhood kids or even attend school. Whispers circulated about Linda's strictness, but no one dared question her. The house itself seemed to exude an aura of dread, as if the very walls were steeped in secrets. One overcast afternoon, Linda spotted Margaret talking and playing with a boy in a public park. Their laughter echoed through the crisp autumn air, a sound so rare and foreign coming from Margaret that it drew the attention of passers-by. The boy, a freckle-faced child named Tommy, was showing Margaret how to skip stones across the pond. For a moment, Margaret seemed like any other child, her face lit with joy. But then Linda's piercing gaze found her. The girl froze, beads of sweat forming on her forehead, her face drained of color. Without a word, she bolted home as if chased by a wild animal, disappearing into the shadows of her house as though she had never been there. For days, Margaret did not leave the house. Neighbors claimed they heard the sound of lashes echoing through the night, sharp cracks slicing the silence. But no screams ever followed. The neighborhood grew uneasy, their curiosity drowned by fear. A week later, Margaret reappeared, eerily cheerful, playing with Jack, a neighbor's child. It seemed as if nothing had happened. Not long after, just a week before Christmas, she invited another boy, John, into her home. John, without informing his parents, sneaked through the back door into Margaret's basement. The basement was a labyrinth of shadows, its air thick with the scent of mildew and something metallic. The walls were lined with shelves cluttered with jars of preserved fruits, dusty books, and strange, unidentifiable objects. In the center of the room stood a life-size dollhouse, its pastel walls and miniature furniture eerily pristine. John hesitated, his heart pounding, but Margaret's cheerful demeanor reassured him. She led him to the dollhouse, where they began to play, but as the time passed, the atmosphere shifted. The cheerful play turned into a macabre performance. Margaret's demeanor changed, her voice taking on a commanding tone as she instructed John to sit still, to smile, to behave like a perfect doll. When he resisted, the shadows seemed to come alive. From the darkness emerged Robert, his face twisted into a grotesque mask of rage. John tried to scream, but a hand clamped over his mouth, silencing him. The last thing he saw was the glint of a blade in the dim light. John never returned home. His worried mother scoured the neighborhood and questioned Margaret, who claimed she didn't know where he was. John's father, Edward, a hardened military man, alerted the police. They arrived swiftly, scouring the house, but initially found nothing. However, as they were leaving, their dog became fixated on the back of the property, growling low. Investigating the basement, the police discovered old yellowed newspaper clippings featuring missing boys aged 4 to 7 from across New York City, pasted on the walls of the basement. An entire wall was only dedicated to it. The articles detailed their mysterious disappearances over the years, none of whom had ever been found. The air in the basement felt heavier, stale with the scent of dust and something darker. It soon became clear that Linda had been luring these boys, as there were pictures which clearly showed that she would feed them, cleaned them up, and dressed them as dolls in frilly clothes. In the basement sat a life-size dollhouse with miniature furniture, tea sets, and pastel walls. The boys were forced to perform in this twisted theatre. If they failed to behave like perfect dolls, they faced brutal punishment and ultimately death. As the investigation deepened, police noticed the repeated appearance of a particular boy in photos with several of the missing children. Despite the years between the disappearances, his face remained hauntingly unchanged. Neighbors confirmed they had seen the same boy standing at the first-floor window, always watching. During a final search, fresh mud was found smeared along the stairs and walls of the house. An officer glanced out the window and spotted the boy sleeping on steel drainage pipes at a nearby construction site, curled up like a feral creature. Further investigation uncovered shocking documents. The boy was not 9 years old, as Margaret had claimed, but a 31-year-old dwarf-sized named Robert. Linda was stunned when presented with the truth, admitting he was her brother. However, hidden photographs and an old marriage certificate revealed Robert was not her brother, but her husband. Medical records from a New York City mental hospital confirmed Robert was severely psychotic. Robert's horrific journey began at the age of 11, when his father lost his job. Abused for his poor school performance, Robert endured relentless beatings, starvation, and days locked in a rat-infested basement. The dark dampness, the skittering of rodents, and the gnawing hunger shaped the monster he became. At 16, after a particularly savage beating, Robert fled home with his mother's jewelry, but was captured and brutalized by local thugs. Upon returning home, his father tied him up and beat him savagely. While his father drank alcohol himself into a stupor, Robert's sister secretly freed him and urged him to escape forever. Before leaving, Robert poured rat poison into his father's drink, his first murder. Robert fled to New York City and found work in a shoemaker's shop. But at 17, a group of boys taunted him for his size and appearance. In a fit of rage, on a stormy night, he got a glimpse of one of them and followed him and killed him with a stone in a dark alley. Arrested and sentenced to a juvenile facility, his violent nature led to his transfer to the New York City mental hospital. There, he met Linda, a nurse. Bonded by their shared darkness, Linda helped Robert escape the asylum. They fled to Philadelphia, married, and later settled there. Robert's envy of happy children fueled his next spree. Initially, he only lured boys to play, but when one mocked him, Robert snapped, killing the boy and disposing of the body by the lake. Linda, upon discovering his crimes, tried to stop him, but years of working in a mental hospital had chipped away at her own sanity. When a man caught Robert covered in blood, he tried to grab and drag him to the police station, and when Linda appeared at this scene, she struck the man with a shovel. Together, Linda and Robert became a murderous pair, targeting joyful boys close to their families. Their reign of terror brought unthinkable horror to Philadelphia, a chilling story of love, madness, and murder that the town will never forget. As the police delved deeper into the case, they uncovered more horrifying details. The dollhouse in the basement was not just a stage for Robert's twisted performances, it was a shrine to his lost childhood. Each piece of furniture, each tiny teacup, was a relic of the boys he had taken. The walls of the basement were adorned with drawings, crude and childlike, depicting scenes of play and punishment. The police also found a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards containing small, carefully preserved items, a lock of hair, a tooth, a scrap of clothing, each one a trophy from his victims. The investigation revealed that Robert had been meticulous in his planning. He would observe the boys for weeks, learning their routines, their likes and dislikes. He would then use Margaret to lure them in, her innocent appearance a perfect disguise for his sinister intentions. Once inside the house, the boys were subjected to a series of tests designed to break their spirits and mold them into the perfect dolls. Those who resisted were dealt with swiftly and brutally. The reason Robert forced the boys to become lifelike dolls was rooted in his own haunting past. During the years of relentless torture from his father, Robert was not only beaten and starved, but was also humiliated by being dressed in doll-like clothing, forced to wear frilly dresses and bonnets as his father mocked his small stature, embedding in him a twisted obsession that later drove him to recreate that same torment upon innocent boys. The final piece of the puzzle came when the police discovered a series of journals hidden in the attic. Written in Robert's cramped, spidery handwriting, they detailed his descent into madness. He wrote of his hatred for the world, his envy of the happy, carefree lives of the children he targeted. He described his crimes in chilling detail, his words dripping with a perverse pride. But amidst the madness, there were moments of clarity, fleeting glimpses of the boy he had once been, lost and alone, crying out for help that never came. The trial of Linda and Robert was a media sensation, drawing crowds from across the country. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and they were quickly convicted. Linda was sentenced to life in prison, her once proud demeanor shattered by the weight of her crimes. Robert, deemed unfit to stand trial, was committed to a high-security mental institution, where he remains to this day. The house in Philadelphia was eventually demolished, the land left barren as a reminder of the horrors that had taken place there. But for the families of the victims, the scars remain, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the most innocent of facades. The story of Linda and Robert is one of love and madness, of a bond forged in the depths of despair and twisted into something unspeakable. It is a story that will haunt the town of Philadelphia for generations to come.